I've been asked to do that. Well, mute myself. Welcome everybody to our RV Repair Club live for June. Welcome, and hopefully everybody's having a great summer to start off. We've been having really hot weather here recently. We just got done shooting some content a couple weeks ago, and so we're going to get started on our first question. We have a gentleman has a 2016 Grand Design. Let me get back up there. Reflections 29 RS, and that Fish Lake Dan. Hi, Fish Lake Dan. New to fifth wheelers, hard jacks when backing really throw the axles out of alignment. Not used to seeing that. Is it okay or something to avoid? And that is something that not only on fifth wheels but on travel trailers, if you've got tandem wheels on the back side of it, this is something that you will see the one first set of wheels. So whether either if you're going forward and you're doing a sharp turn, you know, your front wheels will actually go in, and I don't know what the proper term is, axis or direction of the turn, but the back wheels then are going to slide with that because, you know, they're not independent suspension back there. And so what you see is not only do they slide, but then they also are going to start to buckle somewhat in there. And that is pretty normal. Same when you're backing up, you know, the back wheels typically are going to be kind of straight going in that line, and then the front wheels get slid. And so you see two things. First of all, you see that axle kind of bending sideways a little bit. And the second thing is you start to see some abnormal tire wear the more you do that. And it really only happens when you're going slow and you're making those kind of harder turns. So, you know, one of the things that they typically teach in a driving class and backing up and so forth is try and take a bigger swatch that you can, you know, trying to eliminate that really sharp turning of it, because again, they're going to have to drag, and when they drag, they're going to put some pressure on that, and you will see that. So it does it on travel trailers as well as fifth wheels, just because of the design of that axle and the turning. We have Vicky, and she has a new fifth wheel as well. She's got a 2022 Cougar. So that is a Keystone product, 24 RDS. Holes under the kitchen sink and bathroom are wide open to the below. Baby's up. So somewhere in the design of this, or not the design as much, I think, is in the manufacturing of it. Somewhere, you know, somebody forgot a step to put in there. You do not want open holes to the bottom of your rig, because, you know, first of all, you can get moisture up in there. You can also get rodents up in there. That's a pretty bad area for that. And then, you know, just the hot and cold as well coming up through those. So I would say, you know, typically your floor of that, and it's underneath the cabinets, she said, right? Holes under the kitchen sink and bathroom sink are wide open to below. And probably, you know, a lot of times what happens in some of these RVs is they kind of do a generic floor plan chassis base, and they drill certain holes, and then it goes down the line, and then it goes to the 24 RS, or it goes to a 24 you know, RD or some kind of other floor plan, and they may have drilled these generic holes that pipes were supposed to come down, but then it was shifted or it did something a little different. So typically that's not open to the environments underneath. It's open just to the flooring section, and then either into a compartment or an underbelly type of material that's in there. But I still would cover those up. It's easy for rodents to come up in there, mice and stuff like that. And you know, you can use expandable foam. I've done that before. Depending on how big that hole is, another thing you can do, if you can't see them cosmetically as much, then I would just take another piece of plywood and just put it over that hole and screw it in to cover that hole up. You know, maybe a little silicone around it as well. But you definitely want to get those covered up. And since it's a 2022, I would even probably recommend contacting the dealer and Keystone in their Cougar division and just let them know, here's what we have, and, you know, get it documented in case there's something that, you know, should have been in there, or something that they can use for their quality control. And that's a whole nother area. So Aaron says we have a 2021 Jayco Melbourne Prestige, and we have added extenders to our dually tires. Okay, we would like to protect them against wear. So do you know where we can find stainless steel sleeves for those extenders? And I'm pretty sure what she's talking about in the extenders is valve stem extenders. And I know Dicor makes some. I think Lippard has some. Wheelmaster is a really good one that they've used for years. And one of the things that I would highly recommend that you do is that, you can get them at just about any dealership. I've even seen them available at tire stores and places like that. But the big thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you get the extender that is not just an open tube extender, because your simulator, which is the rim basically in that, if you have one of those can shift and they can cut that extension tube. So you want one that's pretty much, it's got the tube has a separate valve stem that goes all the way through the tube. And so even if it gets cut off in the middle, it's not going to lose air. And, it's like I said, there's a variety of them out there. I'm trying to think of who, Wheelmaster's been in the business for years and years and years. I got to believe Lippert has something. They own about everything. So, but I would check with your dealership. And since it is a travel trailer, no, it's a Jayco Melbourne Prestige. So, and I'm not sure if that's a travel trailer or motorized. They've changed names so many times with the models, but check with your dealer as well. But just make sure you get one that's not hollow in the inside. It's got, it literally pushes when you push an air gauge or an air hose on it. It will push that stem all the way to your main stem and puts the air in there, so it won't let it out if it gets cut or damaged. Alan Barnes, this asks, we have a 42-foot 2018 Heartland Elk Ridge fifth wheel. The living room and the dining room slides stop and start on their own as we retract them. The rack and pinion gears have been lubed. Battery voltage is 13.6. Hydraulic level in the reservoir is about half. It'll pause and start again, maybe 2 or 3 times. It eventually comes in. Thoughts? That probably, since it's 2018 and it's at about half, I would first of all check where is the actual level supposed to be in that unit. And you probably, since you've got the hydraulic slide rooms, that may also do the hydraulic leveling jack. So it kind of sounds like you got air in the system. The first thing I would do is probably change the fluid. Since it's 2018, it's 4 years old at least. Could be almost 5 years old. And that it's not always the case, but anytime you got air in the line, all of a sudden you'll have gaps where it won't work. It doesn't do it. The other thing, I guess, one of the questions I would have is when it stops, the rack and pinion gears have been lubed. The living and dining room slides stop and start on their own as we retract them. So I guess it start and stop on their own. And I'm wondering, are you leaving the button on and then all of a sudden it just doesn't do anything and then it goes, or does it start after you let go of the button? Because that's then a whole different situation of electronics and a short somewhere in that system. But it sounds to me like it's the hydraulic fluid. It could be contaminated. It could have air in the line somewhere that just all of a sudden hits a little hiccup there, and then it'll take off after the pressure kind of backs off on the backside. And a lot of times you can get that from your leveling jacks. A seal may have gone out in it. It could be the I guess one of the things I would check and see is, can you hear the motor trying to run when it stops? And so, those are the things I'd take a look at. I would have I believe you probably have a power gear system in that, and that is owned by Lippert now. And that's a pretty common rack and pinion system that was used a lot in the fifth wheel products out there, but Lippert has a whole host of different types. So find out what rack and pinion you have. Then you might also get a hold of Lippert. If you go to lci1.com, and then you can go into the slide rooms. They have manuals for everything. They have service manuals, and you can kind of identify what you have. And they have a phenomenal technical support staff as well that will kind of walk you through, and you should be able to get a manual on that, on how to bleed that system. Normally, it's just running it in and out several different times, running your jacks in and out, and just kind of getting that air to move back through the reservoir tank and you know, basically burp it out is kind of what it's doing. So Alan's got a second question, is we also have a TPO roof, Dyflex vinyl rubber roof. Does it need to be sealed? And what do we use to clean it? And we've spent a lot of time on the different type of roof structures, and I'm going to grab a little prop here since I have them available. I don't know if I have the Dyflex here, but I have a variety of products that we got. Oh, there we go. Dicor Dyflex right there. And so that comes in many colors. It's there's the gray. And you can tell TPO is going to have the same color backside as it does the top side. And here's an example of a EPDM, and it's black on the backside. And the way you can tell is when you can take off a roof vent shroud, basically the ring around it, there's a few screws, you pull that down, and you'll see they have this over the opening, and then they cut an X for that, and they just fold down some of that material. So you should be able to inside pull that up and take a look at it. And Dicor recommends in their product, we've got a variety of different, that's the Dove color. And so they've got a cleaner that they recommend that you use. It's just a concentrate that goes on it. I have always been a big fan of Dawn dish soap. We've done that for years on all the different types of rubber membranes that are out there. Alpha Systems, and this one is super, I can't remember the name of this one, but they recommend Murphy's soap oil in water. And I think, you know, any of those are good. The Dicor stuff is very good, but Dawn dish soap is very economically or environmentally friendly. It does a really nice job on tree sap and bird droppings. It cleans ducks in Alaska, if you remember that way back when. So it's you know, it's an easy one to do. And then Dicor has their own TPO conditioner that they recommend. Now, a lot of these companies are going away from any type of conditioner on the top of it, and just use maybe a little 303 protectant for some UV protection into it. But Dicor still does recommend their conditioner on top of it, which you can get on their website. They are owned by Dometic now, and Rudy is the guy that does all the videos for them. And so that's I guess I would, since it's a, what year did you say it was? It was a 2018, and that roof material is generally guaranteed or warranted for 10 years. So I would say probably stick with their recommendation and document that you did it, because then if anything happens to it down the road, you have documentation that you maintained it as they recommend it, and then they can't get out of the warranty for that. John says, questions for Dave during the live session at 4 today. Well, this came in at 3:32. Okay. We have a 2008 Road Trek Agile. When the water pump turns on, it vibrates, resonates with the entire vehicle, and becomes a really loud noise. Please recommend method that I can use or dampen to eliminate the resonating vibration. And you can do that with a, did I bring the water pump kit? And I do not have the water pump down here. I believe we pulled that up. Yes. that is up in our shooting content stuff. So maybe if I can use this, the box. So a lot of times what happens, and your road truck is, it's like a Class B or a Class C. I think it's a B van. So there's a lot of metal, especially in the flooring and compartment stuff. A lot of times those are formed metal pieces. And so you've got either a flow jet or a sure flow like this one here. And if you take a look at, where's the best picture? Probably, okay, just that. It is normally going to be mounted to the base of that. And even though there's typically some like trunk liner that is around the compartment where it's at, you still are going to get some vibration out of that when it starts up because it's mounted directly to that. The other thing that happens is that if you've got hard line plastic like PEX or other supply lines that come in and come out, when that starts up, the force of that pressure going through there is going to make them do this. And so you got the incoming and the outgoing, and you can tell what's the problem with it. Now, there are some kits out there, and a lot of manufacturers have started doing this, where they are putting, instead of the hard plastic, they are putting in a softer type of a hose system on that. And this one's one that we just got from the local, in fact, I think it was Walmart, even in their RV section. It's a little more, stiff than what I would typically go with. What I would probably recommend is these are 1/2-inch lines, and you can get a really soft plastic. I have one somewhere. There it is. That I use to make my water cleaning hose. And this, I know this is what Winnebago uses. They go with that really soft plastic, and then also mount the water pump on an entire rubber mat in there. So it takes away that, solid to solid vibration that you would get from the pump. You put this on, it's a lot more flexible. Make sure it's not, a lot of times that hard plastic will come off and it'll be laying on it, and it'll just, so if the more you can get that up and off the ground and the less direct contact, because you're always going to get some vibration, out of that water pump. So hopefully that should help. Just purchased a tire pressure monitoring system and need to set the alarm parameters. What are the typical pressure and temperature deviations that are used before triggering an alarm? And it kind of depends on, we've been a big fan of TST technologies programs. There's still going to be a plus or minus 4 PSI. They're claiming theirs are more down into the 2 PSI range. The temperature isn't as much as the pressure itself, because you could start off on a medium day with the temperature. So there really is no set maximum temperature that tire can be. And we've done a lot of research. We've got Trey Seelman, who is with the RV Safety Education Foundation, Roger Marble, who is with the RVTravel.com, has written several articles about tire pressure and tire temperature. Because if you start off, on a day where the ambient temperature is 65, 70 degrees, and it gets up into 100 degrees, and then road temperature is going to raise that even higher. And so they really don't have a maximum temperature rating on tires from what I've found from those two. It's more in what your tire pressure should be. And again, it's not on the high side. It's going to be on the low side of that, because your tire pressure is going to naturally raise as the temperature raises as you go down the road. So the tire is going to inflate with that. So they don't really set those. On the low side, I believe that the monitors, you can go in and set, and you should have a instruction, whether it's Tire Minder, tire TST systems, it should give you the range of where you should be at. And sometimes it kind of depends on the tire that you have. So let's say you've got a big tire and you didn't put okay, Okay, yeah. So, you know, if I got a tire that is on a big diesel pusher and I'm putting 110, 120 psi in that thing, you know, if I get down below, you know, let's say 90 some, you know, I want that alarm to start triggering, because then I know there is a loss of tire pressure in there. So that percentage is going to be less for a tire that you're only going to put in 40 or 50 psi in. So, you know, I would look at your monitor or your manual of that, and it should give you a value in there of a table of here's the tire size or here's the pressure size and the percent of decrease in that pressure. You know, could be somewhere in the 20-25% if I remember correctly. Check out also, we have a video that we put tire pressure monitor systems on a large ICAN and a travel trailer, and we did it with the tire TST systems vice president of sales, and we went through that stuff in there. So check on the site and just look up tire pressure monitoring system and especially TST technologies. And I'll do a little more research and see if I can find that that actual table that says it. That brings up another point I just remember. We do have a couple downloads today. One is the 50 national parks that Katie, I think, put a link for a download to that. And then we just launched today a product called Soft Smart RV, and it is a, for lack of a better word, a capacitor, or it's a device that will actually reduce the amp draw and startup of your air conditioners. And we put 2 of these on 2015 Thor, and we registered them. Before we put them on, it was spiking in like 52 amp draw in the initial startup of that and thumping like crazy. We put these on and it was less than 14. In fact, it was 14 with the converter running. So, you know, the advantage of this is you can use 2 roof airs on a 30 amp service. You can use 1 roof air on a residential household 20 amp service. Some of you already do, and you shouldn't be doing that. You can also use a 1 roof air on a smaller 2,000 or 2,500 watt generator. So, and we have partnered with Soft Start RV, and you can get a $30 discount for that. So check out that product. It's pretty phenomenal. And it's so easy to put on. You don't have to cut any wires, and they got live tech support that'll walk you through anything. Okay, Jayco. Eric has a 2013 Jayco Greyhawk, which is a DS32 with a heat pump unit AC. Should our single AC unit be able to keep us comfortably cool in 90 to 100 degree temperatures at a non-shade campground in the Midwest? Ours wasn't able to last summer. I'm wondering if this is typical. It appears someone has already done the baffle upgrades, etc. Okay, so what he's looking at is he's got 1 roof air conditioner, 90 to 100 degrees, and you really need to find out what your ambient temperature inside, because a roof air conditioner can only cool that unit down, the air that's coming into about 16 degrees. So even though you say it's 90 to 100 ambient temperature, what is the temperature inside your RV? If you don't have real good insulation, if you're out in the beating side of the sun, sometimes even wind hitting the side of it will even heat it up a little more because it's driving some of that heat to the windows. So, you know, take a temperature gauge, and here's what I typically like to use. This, I got this online, but I did find it at Big Five earlier, and I lost that one at a show one time. But this will do a, let me get it to turn on here. Am I already out of battery power? Oh, it can't be out already. I guess it is. Huh. Okay, well, this is a anemometer, it's called. And so what it will do, let me see if I can pull this apart. Anyway, it will tell you temperature. So the first thing I want to do is I'm going to put it up to the intake side. And here's how the air conditioner works. It's going to pull hot, moist air from the top part of your coach up into the air conditioner, run it through the evaporator coils. You'll have your cooling fluid then goes through the coils in that and it flashes, kind of like if you're sweating and you got air that blows over it and that cool you get. So it will draw the moisture out of that down into the drip pan, and then it runs it back down into your ductwork, which you say you have, and distribute it out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find out what is the temperature of that air coming in and, you know, going out, and then what is the temperature as it comes out. And if it's 16 degrees, it's doing its job. You know, so you can't expect to take a 90 to 100 degree day and let that RV bake inside without the air conditioner running while you're out sightseeing or whatever it's doing. And then you come back and try to fire that thing up, or you come out for the very first time. It'll take you 2 days to bring that down to 70, 75 degrees or something like that. So you have to understand that system and let it run. The other thing you can do to help that is get as much moisture out of that unit as you can, get some airflow, get some of the roof vents getting the really hot areas, put some reflectants. It's called aluminum faced insulation. It's not very thick, but put that on your windows on the inside of it, you know, because your windows, even if you have dual pane windows, it's air in between them. So you're really not going to get a lot of insulation. So you're fighting all those things. And if you can't get into the shade, you got to find a way to try to get some of that ambient temperature out of there. Now, you did the ductwork upgrade, the baffle upgrade, I guess it says. And so someone has already done the baffle upgrade. Now, I'm not sure what that upgrade is. I have seen a couple videos where they'll take the air conditioning shroud off in the inside, and they'll literally put like a block up in there that directs the stuff out so you don't lose as much directly underneath it. The one thing, I'm not a big fan of that. I've talked with several of the engineers from Coleman and from Dometic, and they said that, you know, really what that's doing, it's creating more pressure on that fan up in there, and eventually you're going to have some problems with it. But the one thing you do want to check is pull that air conditioner shroud down and just make sure that the baffles that are in there are taped up really good. There's not a lot of open metal. You might want to put some of the, you know, they call it HVAC insulation material on that. Anytime you got open areas up there, you're going to get condensation, moisture. And so you're fighting that on the inside as well. But a lot of times I've seen where the air comes down, and all these systems are the same. I have one back here, but it weighs a ton. They have an open cavity, and then they supply a baffle that's generic. And the manufacturing company is then cuts the baffle, puts it in the center, and that's when so if your air conditioner is designed to come out right at the air conditioner, then you don't use the baffle. It comes out the vents on the air conditioner. But if you have ducted roof air inside, then you put this baffle in to divert it out ways. And I have seen where they're not solid on the edges. I've seen where they've tipped one way or the other. So you're not getting the airflow that you should out of those. And then you can also kind of use this to tell what is the airflow speed. And then you might want to get in touch with the manufacturing company, because they should have what that should actually have an airflow coming out of that if you have batteries at work. Oops, excuse me. So try those things. And you know, the other thing is we've got a really good video on making your air conditioner run more efficiently in heat, and a couple of articles I think that are in the library as well. And it talks about the reflection of the stuff, getting something, you know, moving around on the inside of it. But the big thing is, you know, what is that temperature now, and how can I get that to work? And, you know, you don't see that so much in your home because you've got really good insulation in the sidewalls and attics and places that you're not fighting, but your home does the exact same thing. It's just that the insulation keeps it cooler and it's easier to bring it down. And you very, very seldom ever let your home sit and bake to a sweltering 120 degrees inside. Okay, and that was Eric. David says, I have a 2021 Jayco Greyhawk 30Z. My black tank flush is not working. It used to have replaced the flush valve twice. The water begins to flow but stops almost immediately. What else could be blocking the water from flowing? So what he's talking about is this. This is, I think they call it a cyclone, but this is a black water flush valve. And we added this with the spider. Get out of there. To this system in here. So this is similar to what he would have in his. And what this does is you hook some pressure water from a campground source to this, and then inside this, it will spin. And there's a variety of different models of this. Some have a tube that slaps around. Some of them have just a diverter. But the whole idea of this is to clean these probes. And you can see how chalky these probes are already. And that's just from having some water in here, demonstrating at one point and draining them. So what happens is the sidewall here gets calcium, rust, lime, and black water tank, especially sewage and that kind of stuff. So it makes the arc, even if you've dumped those tanks out, you still have connectivity between these. So this is supposed to be in there just to clean it out really well. So the thing that would restrict that, and I guess I'm not positive if you replace the entire valve, that's where I'm saying, look at all this calcium in here from just one use in here. And this is some pretty hard water here. So if you've replaced this entire mechanism 2 times, like it looks like you did, then a lot of times what happens in a fifth wheel is that you're not hooking directly to this valve here. They have a hose that runs over to the service center because your black water tanks are in another location. So the first thing I would check is the connection that you're making at the service center where you got a black water flush. And I want to read this one more time. My black tank flush is not working. It used to. Have replaced the flush valve twice. The water begins to flow but stops almost immediately. What else could be blocking the water from flowing? So somewhere, if it's not in calcium in buildup in that, it's a supply hose to that. It could be kinked. It could be blocked with calcium. So I guess the thing that I would start at is backtrack. So if you have access to the black water valve, the flush valve, at the tank, and I guess the more I look at this, the more I'm kind of maybe guessing that the flush valve that you replaced might be in the service center. And that would be just a connecting valve, like something like this. And then they would have run a hose to where your actual black water is at and this valve. So, I had a couple questions, I guess, without knowing for sure what valve, if you have access, because normally on a fifth wheel, you don't have access to that black water tank. The more I think about how this is worded. So I would say that, if you replace the valve at the service center, that's not the actual valve. That's just a connector like this, sitting outside and hooking up to it. The actual valve has got to be on the tank itself. So you have somewhere, you've got an obstruction either at the service center if you didn't do that, or here. So I would try those things. And again, that's something without being able to see how that configuration is, it's hard to know exactly what it is. So Ed says GVWR to a percentage of the total GAWR of the front and rear axles. Okay, so gross vehicle weight rating is what GVWR is, to a percentage of the total GAWR, which is a gross axle weight rating of the front and rear axles. So I'm trying to decipher what the question is. You know, is it what should be the percentage of the front axle compared to the rear axle to the GVWR? And, you know, I guess all that stuff, in my opinion, doesn't really matter about the percentage of all that stuff, because what really matters is that you have a chassis manufacturer's gross axle weight rating, GAWR, and on the front, it will be to whatever specifications Ford or Freightliner or Spartan is saying. You have a back axle weight rating that's going to be much more than that. And the overall weight of the gross vehicle weight rating means your entire vehicle cannot exceed the gross vehicle weight rating, but you cannot exceed each individual axle rating as well. So, you know, let's say on the Ford 22,000 pound axle rating, you probably have somewhere in about the 8,000 or 9,000 pound front axle, and then you have duals in the back. So you could be at 20, excuse me, not 22. You could be at 14,000 gross axle weight rating, and you know, those are the things you got to be, you know, concerned about. You cannot go over the front or the back. So that's why when you get them weighed, it's best to get them weighed by individual wheel position, because sometimes they'll be side to side. I've seen units that are 1,000 pounds heavier on one side because RV manufacturers do not build RVs for weight distribution. Otherwise, all the appliances would be down the center and we'd walk around the outside edges. Nobody would buy that. So, you know, it's very difficult to get it weighed by individual wheel position. There's 3 or 4 teams out. RVsafety.com is the RV Safety and Education Foundation that has the teams out weighing by individual wheel positions. You know, if nothing else, get it to a CAT scale at a Flying J or a Pilot for $10. Front wheels on the first pad, back wheels on the second pad, and you know, get your axle weight ratings, and that'll give you your overall weight rating. If you have a truck and trailer, front truck wheels on the first, back truck wheels with the trailer tongue on the second, and the trailer on the third. You know, and I'm assuming this is a motorized, because, you know, if you had a travel trailer, you don't have individual axle weight ratings that are different. You've got duals or triples in fifth wheels, you know, but they basically, you know, it's hard to get individual wheels on those since they're right next to each other. It is still good to get side to side on those as well. But those are the things, you know, as far as weight ratings that you want to be concerned about. What options are there for replacing the stock air conditioner on a 2021 Forest River Sunseeker 2400B in order to run it off batteries and solar? Added a 5 kW. That can't be right. Added a 5 kWh LiFeSO batteries, which is a lithium phosphate batteries, so lithium batteries, and a 700 watt solar panels with a 3,000 watt inverter, perhaps DC, AC, or heat pump. So, okay, he's got 2021 Forest River Sunseeker, and one of the companies that is doing what he's trying to do, he's trying to run the roof air conditioner off the batteries, and you can do that for about 3 hours if you have a very, very powerful setup. Keystone is doing that right now with what they call a solar flex. So they, on their fifth wheels, it comes standard with a 200, a 400, or 600 watt solar panel system, an inverter, and 3 lithium batteries for the 600 watt. And we saw the demonstration out of Hershey that they had out there. And what they had to do is you have to put soft start RV on that air conditioner system up there, so you don't have the huge ramp up. Otherwise, those batteries will just go, and you won't be able to use it. But you put the soft start RV on first. You know, you've got, and what I don't understand, you have 5 kWh, and that usually is a generator, 5 kW. You know, the batteries need to be listed by amp hours. You know, so how many amp hours do you have? And with the you know, we did a piece on XBAN 360. We put two 100 amp hour lithium batteries in this 2015 Thor, and that still wouldn't give us enough power to run those roof airs for very long without doing a third one in there, a 600 watt generator or solar panel system on the top of it. And even then, we're only going to get about probably 2 to 3 hours, depending on what else is running inside there. So, you know, the thing that you need to look at to make these run, you don't need to get a new air conditioner, but what you do need is to get a soft start in there. You also need to look at you got enough solar panel power in it, but how many amp hour lithium batteries do you have? That's the key, and are they good ones? You know, I mean, there's a lot of cheap lithium that's jumping into the market, and you know, one of the things that we did a lot of research on, XBAN 360 has some of the best batteries out in the market. They use the best cells. They have a battery management system inside that will make sure everything's equalized in it. But the big thing is the connectivity of those cells is not soldered together. It's mechanically wires and nuts, and because solder is going to break when you get into road vibration, you get into cold weather, all this kind of stuff. So there's a ton of stuff. I would highly recommend go to xban360.com to get more information. We do have some videos that are coming out very soon on that. We spent a lot of time, you know, researching that and going through it. So, you know, the other thing you need to look at too is what kind of converter do you have? Because you've got a 3000 kW inverter that may also be a converter, but is it set for lithium? Lithium batteries want 14.6 volts charging them. Your typical converter in a unit like the one we took out is this. This happens to be a WFCO, WFCO. And this is a pretty standard type of a charger. They call it a converter. I mean, even this one here has a converter on the side. These will do 13.6 when the batteries get down to a lower charge, and then they top off at 13.2. And if you've got lithium batteries in, this is not the charger you want. You want something that will set up for lithium, that will get up to 14.6. Otherwise, you're putting in some very expensive batteries and you're getting about 60% capacity out of them, and then you won't be able to run your stuff like you want to. So look for those videos and go to xban360.com. Where are we at? Okay, so Michelle says, thanks for the info at the start about the tandem twisting bending. Okay, if I develop tire wear because of this axle out of alignment, how can I correct this? Or can a qualified RV mechanic do a trailer alignment? Yes, a qualified RV or even just a trailer place can do a trailer alignment, because what can happen is those axles can bend. You can get a toe in, a toe out, various different things. And I ran a company for 10 years called Easy Wash, and we had trucks and trailers, 3 of them out on the road, and they would do about 100,000 miles each. So we learned an awful lot about trailers. And we went through axles the first year, pretty alarming, and it's very expensive to replace an axle or fix an axle out on the road, on the side of the road especially. And so we went with a Dexter axle. We went a little heavier in the axle, and we went with the rubber type, and I can't remember the name of it, but you know, it was a little more flexible in what it would do for that. You know, what we found is when we started seeing some tire wear, you know, inadvertent tire wear, some flat spots, some stuff like that, we would start to rotate the tires. And we did that pretty often. We had a real good tire store locally that we would zip everything off, run them down, maximum, you know, excuse me, swap them around and just made sure we got the best life out of all those tires. But you know, find a good place that's going to be able to go in and you know, just talk to them about how do you check alignment. You know, because we went through a couple places to begin with that we were not very satisfied with. They just did a real quick little measurement and said, yeah, these are fine. And you know, most axles cannot be adjusted for alignment. You know, with just an easy type of system, most of them are going to require some kind of a bending, you know, or bracket issue with those axles. Gregory said we have an A-liner. So that's the international sign for A-liner with the propane heater from the factory. Every service on Long Island is pitiful, not just Long Island. The heater is inoperable. What would typically cause the heater being inoperable? I've taken the unit out of the camper. So, you know, that's a very generic question, and we need a little more information on, first of all, the type of heater. Is it Suburban? Is it Atwood? With an A-liner, it's probably a smaller little version. We've got a couple of them here. We got about 10 minutes left. So, you know, let's take a look at how the heater. So when you say inoperable, does it try to light? Does it, you know, is it one that will run on propane, which I'm assuming it is? So here is our, is this the only furnace we have? This is probably similar to what you have, because I don't think you would have the bigger, flatter Suburban. The A-liner would have what's just called a direct vent type of a furnace, which means this is your outside piece. And it's going to have something similar to this. This one happens to not even be for this one, but you'll have an intake and an exhaust. So the first thing I always ask when somebody says my furnace is not working, okay, so you set the thermostat to the desired temperature, and it's going to be about plus or minus 2 degrees on what you set it for. So ambient temperature hits, let's say you want to set it 65 degrees. So it gets down to 63 degrees. The thermostat then closes, we call it. That means it clicks, and it's powered by a 12-volt source. So it's your house battery. So that should click and send power down to your module board. In we can't see it in this one. It's covered up. So our module board is going to be inside in here, and you know this one. See, this one here has an on-off switch in here. So if you want to put it in storage, you can turn it off. That's the Air Excel version of it. So what it will do is it immediately then, if it hits power to that module board, the module board says, I am going to start up the fan. And it has a fan built in. And this one, and you will not see it. The other one you can, but this is the motor right in here. It starts the fan up. What that fan will do is it will pull in outside air, runs it through the burner assembly, so it purges any LP or fumes or exhaust that might still be in that burner assembly, and then it pushes it out the exhaust. The other thing that it does then is it pulls in, so none of that goes inside the rig. So the next thing it does is it pulls inside air from your RV into this system and runs it over that burner assembly and pushes it back out to your vents outside. And you can kind of see the burner. There's the burner assembly right here. So the air is going to come whooshing out here. There's also a sail switch that's in this. Can I see it back there? Now this one's too hard to see. Oh, it's way back in there. But sail switch, what that is, it's just a little lever that as that air pressure flows over it, it lifts that sail switch, telling the module board that, yeah, we got enough airflow coming through here. So go ahead and light it. Go ahead and open the gas valve and spark. And it should light, and it should go across there. And then on the outside, this is our spark assembly, and then we have a temperature sensor, which I believe is this one. Yes, right here. So that if it gets too hot, it will shut the unit off. So the question I have is, when you say it's not working, it's inoperable, does it even try to start? You know, if it does nothing, I start with the thermostat. Check to make sure you have 12-volt power at the thermostat. Does it do it when you're hooked to shoreline, or are you trying to dry camp? And if you're dry camping, you might not have enough house battery power. Now, one of the deceiving things with some of these is sometimes the heater will start up, or not the heat, the fan will start up, but it never gets hot. And in that case, what typically happens is we either have low battery power, so it's not making the fan go fast enough to push up the sail switch, or we don't have enough power to open the gas valve. So hook it up to shoreline power or hook it up to a battery booster if that's the case. But if you have no power whatsoever, then it's a 12-volt issue somewhere. It is either in the thermostat or your module board. It could be a fuse. You'll have a fuse like this in your distribution center that it goes to. So you almost have to pull this out and verify that you have 12-volt power coming to that. So again, taking those steps, look at the videos we have on thermos operations, and understanding where those certain points are at and how it works on 12-volt and LP is a key. So if it's starting but it doesn't go in, then you can go through those steps. So A-liner. Andy says, and we got about 3 minutes left, GeoPro 12 SRK 2021 driver's side plastic fender is vibrant loose. Okay. So GeoPro, that's a smaller little unit. Since it's a 2021, I would highly recommend that you take it back to a dealer and get in touch with the RV manufacturer, because it should still be under warranty. It might not. Should be close, but you want to get that stuff documented, and just in case there's any further issues down the road. So, pretty much the fenders on those are really cheap, and I don't mean price-wise. I mean quality-wise, and they flap around pretty good. And normally they are just held on with a series of little L connectors, sometimes clips even. The idea with those fenders is that, RV tires are notorious for blowing out. That's a whole nother subject. It's not cheap tires. A lot of times it's weight. It's the not checking the pressure. It can be, but I know I've talked to several RV manufacturers, especially on the trailer side, that they make a pretty loose, flexible fender for those, because when the tire blows out, they want the fender to blow apart rather than the entire sidewall. If you put a good solid fender on those units and that tire blows out and starts throwing pieces around there, you could have some major damage in that sidewall or slide room or whatever. So, I would get a hold of the manufacturer. I would check, on the passenger side, you should be able to go in and see what kind of connector they use, and, probably be able to fix it yourself if it's not in warranty. We got about a minute left, and we have brand new GP FBS 20. The AC doesn't get cold, I'm assuming. What should I check first before leaving it in the service center for 6 weeks? So, Jack, we just kind of went through on the air conditioner. Hopefully you were here when we talked about how that air conditioner works. It's going to draw warm, moist air to the inside of it. And I think we did that for this, didn't we? I'll have to look back and see. But, so let me look. Doesn't get cold. So, yeah, we were talking about find out what your ambient temperature is. If it's pulling warm, moist air in over the compressor coils and shooting back down, you need to find out what is it drawing in. It should be going down 16 degrees from that. And if it's not, then, I guess the other things I would look at, you can't recharge the air conditioner and that, and we're running out of time because it's going to take a little more of that. What I would recommend is go in and look at our air conditioner. We've got a couple articles on it, but we also have really good videos on, you know, how that system works, drawing in over that and sending it back down. It's very possible that, you know, you have something in the ductwork in it. So I'm getting the, are we at 5 o'clock? Oh, we got 2 minutes. Okay. I showed down here at 5. So, so that's what I would recommend doing. You cannot go in and recharge those air conditioners. They're sealed systems. So that should be able to be flashing that stuff around, but it's all about getting air movement and getting that warm, moist air out as easy as possible. How do you reconnect wires to the LED strip lights on the top of our motorhome wall? A soldering iron is not working. I cannot get the solder to stick to the wire or the LED strip without melting a bigger hole in the strip. Normally, and I don't know what, you know, I don't know how to have the make, the model. If the strips are part of the awning up in the top of it, or if they're, you know, just an aftermarket LED. Most of those LED lights will have a connecting kit that you can get, so you don't have to solder that stuff. You simply cut it, and you know, basically, you're just trying to make a connection. You're trying to make a closed circuit that 12 volt can go through. So instead of trying to solder that stuff, because you're taking pretty extensive heat up there with plastic, and those don't combine real well. So I would highly recommend trying to find the brand of LED that you have, and then see if you can go back through and find a connecting kit. One of the ones that we've been real successful with is called M4LED.com, and they have LED lights, but then strip lights, that type of stuff too. So they should be able to get you a connecting kit. And she says, wrap it up. So I got one more. Gary says, yeah, 2018 Integra Insignia Acuva. When installing the active 2, I do need to install a particular filter on the filters. Anyway, we got quite a few here. I'll try to get back through and maybe answer those on the posts here. I do appreciate everybody coming out and joining us. And again, the downloads, we've got the 50 state parks that are on the download, as well as the Soft Start RV. And I will see you guys down the road, and have a wonderful summer. Oh. Oh, I see. Yeah, we did go